Captain Picard met Captain Rix at the Altarian conference. Captain Tryla Scott made Captain faster than anyone in Starfleet history. And Italics B is one of 7 uninhabited planets mined for the Federation by the, wait for it, Ditalics Mining Company. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 24, Conspiracy, story by Robert Sabaroff, teleplay by Tracy Torme, directed by Cliff Bole. More on that in a moment. This was May 7th, 1988. We have a very, very special guest. Makeup effects guru, the legend of Hollywood makeup around the world, Mr. Michael Westmore. Hello, Michael. How are you today?
Hi. Good. How are you doing?
Awesome. And thank you so much for joining us. Also, very special thanks to Grandpa One, aka Tim Baum, for sponsoring this entire season. So, Cirroc, this is his first time seeing this episode, Michael. Cirroc's first time. So we didn't tell him anything. Yeah. Was this what you expected out of Star Trek, Cirroc?
No.
Yes, I did. I kind of expected that this was good.
Maybe you did. I didn't.
I liked this episode, and the makeup was like ridiculous. It was just like A1. Michael, you're so amazing, and you've done so much legendary work in Star Trek. But when I watched this episode, it was really cinematically done. It felt like motion picture quality.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about this episode?
Well, to me, when I read the script, and I'm going, oh my god, and I never got to really say that again, because it was like we never made anything like this again. It was just everybody's going, wow, and it was just getting into that, and all the requirements that had to be done for it was but I was so used to just following along. Fine, I get the script, this is what I'm supposed to do, so I do it. And just doing this, and of course it was very early on in my 18 years there, so it was actually fun to do. It wasn't like a great challenge or that having to try to figure out how to do it. It all just went into place, doing each one of the steps that had to be done to make every one of those effects work.
When you read the script first and you thought, wow, were you thinking, wow, this can be difficult? Wow, this is surprising? Were you thinking, wow, this is exciting? I had no idea this show was going to give me the opportunity to basically make a horror film with horror film aliens.
Exactly. And that's what I felt. It wasn't, with all the shows, I never, and it's for the total of the 18 years, it's like over 625 episodes.
Wow.
Between all 4 of the series. And I don't think anything ever popped up. The only problem when I ever started to sweat a few bullets was when they'd say, you have to have everything ready in 2 days, where we had 7-day periods on a show, and the further off we could pour the alien or the special effects, you can always do things better and have time if you screw up to figure out what to do. But we didn't always have that way. So I read the script, and basically through that time there, that nobody ever told me what to do. It wasn't like a writer came in and said, now this alien is supposed to look like this. Through the entire time, Rick Berman gave it to me. I would always have him look at the sculptures and things, and I would do a few sketches, but it wasn't where anyone ever told me how to do it or what to do. I worked with the wardrobe department, like with the Borg, where they designed certain heads, and of course we went bald on the Borg after Next Gen, and it was just, I want to say, and everybody, all the makeup artists and everybody, I have heard so many times that I had the greatest job in the world because I had the freedom to create. And I would always find reasons to create the character I was doing. And it never told me in the script. A writer never told me, I want this to look like a sand character from such and such or whatever. No one ever said a word. So it was the ideal job, and I would say in makeup history in Hollywood.
What was the biggest challenge for that climax scene with the whole transformation and that alien basically coming out of his chest? What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
Well, to begin with, the officer is sitting there in the chair, and he's got all the little baby bugs which we made in the lab all over him. And they wanted at one point for him, the bug, to go into his mouth, and you'd see his throat pulsate as it's going down.
Right.
So the first thing on that was to make a bladder, because the throat is round here, so you just couldn't put a balloon there or something. And there's a way of taking liquid latex and actually taking and making a cast of the actor's throat and putting liquid latex on his throat in the shape you want. And then we had a chemical that was actually the setting agent for latex, and painted it on that first coat on the latex. And then when that dried, put another coat of latex over that, and it would seal the two together. And I'd leave a little hole off of one side, maybe around the side of the neck. And through that, a tube could go into, whether it be a flat tube or a little round one. So we could pump our own air into it. But it was a custom-made bladder for this guy's neck. And that was glued on first. And then on another cast of his throat, sculpted up a very thin layer of foam latex. And that was made just like we'd make the monsters and everything. It's cold, it's foamy, it's like mattress when if you felt it. And these were made particularly thin, and the foam was put into the mold, went into a 200-degree oven, baked for about an hour, came out, and that would be glued over the top of it. So then it would look like and this is the way a lot of it's done today, even the way it's and glued down. And then I could insert the tube in there when we were filming. And by putting air through that tube, it would make his throat go, it would puff out. And it would make it look, after the little alien went down his mouth, and was going, it looks like he's little things crawling down.
Now, Michael, I heard a story as to how you pumped air into his neck. Could you tell us that and verify it?
Yes, that was, and you think this is very technical. I had it was a 6-8 foot of tubing, and it was connected to that, went down the back of his coat, and back down here, down his coat, out the back, down, and of course the way Cliff the director, had set the shot up, nobody could be around there. So I am literally, and I like to do this stuff myself, I'm laying on the floor with the end of this tube, and I'm going, and with a rhythm. And Cliff, the director, and I, we actually have known each other. He's passed away now. Have known each other since kindergarten. And we went to school for up through junior high until he went to a different high school. But we were friends for that length of time. And it was very strange because my name at that time was Mickey, before it came Mike and got Michael, went right down the line, as time went on. But all of a sudden I hear, Mickey, are you okay? And I'm going, what? So but I was literally starting to hyperventilate. It was wow. It was like, okay, let's do that one more time. And I'm just glad Martin Scorsese wasn't directing it, because when I've been on Marty shows, he has 30 takes. I would have never survived 30 takes.
You might have talent to play a trumpet or something like that.
Yeah, right. That gives blowjob a whole different meaning.
Hey, everybody, is this on?
That might have even come up somewhere along the line.
Probably that
I'm laying on the floor.
Wow, that's so. You got that effect done. That was obviously challenging. And, I always think about the kind of challenges that you're presented with when you have these aliens and these special effects you have to come up with, because there's no book, right? There's no like place you can go to and say, oh yeah, I need a pumping neck.
Michael's the one writing it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're making this stuff up as you go along, right?
Yes. See, it doesn't come up that often. So it's one of those things. It would be nice to have a book. The first book that I wrote, I did after teaching at Los Angeles Valley College, and it had some of these things into it. But how you could simplify it, because I found as I was teaching college students, I couldn't just go with my professional techniques and say, this is how you do it, and these are the words you use and whatever. I had to simplify everything. So my first book was a simplified book, which was used by colleges, and but something you would never put a bladder into it or something like that. I think some Dick Smith may have had something like that in one of his little books that he turned out over the years. But those that don't know the name Dick Smith, Dick was one of the most brilliant makeup artists. He did The Exorcist and pictures like that.
Wow.
But it was it's like everything was always new, like with Star Trek. 600 and some episodes, and never knew what was going to be asked for until I got that script and read it. And I think there's only one time, and it wasn't because it wasn't in the script. There was a script where Hugh had his hand on a bar and Whoopi Goldberg had a fork, and she jabs the fork into his hand. And about 10 o'clock at night, Les Landau, the director, wanted an arm or a hand that she could jab the fork into. And I wasn't there. I had gone home because that wasn't called for or anything. But they wanted me to come back. I wasn't coming back. But we didn't have an arm ready. I said, if you want to shoot that in the morning, I'll put somebody on it at 4 o'clock, and you'll have your hand to do it as an insert, But it wasn't that important, so it never was done. But that's the only time I can really remember where something was done that I didn't really have the control on for that moment.
Hey, when the director needs something, give him a hand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, but Michael, just a quick side note. You said you taught at Los Angeles Valley College. I took a lot of classes there myself. Just quickly, what did you teach there? Was it a makeup?
That was a makeup course.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or might have been 8 years. Monday nights. Of course, it's when I was at Universal. And I worked for my uncle, so I could just go to Bud and say, "Hey, I got to leave tonight. I got to teach class," And it was fun. It was a 4-hour class. And I say, there's a number of my students who are in the business now, and some of those early ones have already even retired. But I had a lot of fun doing that, working with them.
Was it theater makeup specifically, or was it general?
General. Okay. I mean, not beauty makeup, because part of the curriculum was everybody had to do a face cast, and they had to create a character on their faces. And out of my first class that I ever did, 2 of them became pros, and for their final projects, they actually made Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes was popular then, and they made up 2 faces that I want to say were damn good.
That's hard.
For their final, that was the whole idea, was to do, the makeup on yourself. So.
Oh wow. Yeah, this episode, there's something else that stood out to me in this episode that I thought was a change, and I wanted to ask you if there was any conversation about it. Worf's makeup seems to be done better in this episode than I've seen in any time prior. And I wondered, because then, watching this Next Generation first season, I'm seeing Worf in a different way than I had known him on Deep Space Nine when we started on season 4.
Mm-hmm.
So he was already, his look was different. His hair was like longer, and his look was more, I would say, set in. And I wanted to ask you about the evolution of Worf's makeup.
Yes, Michael's makeup, the way we started, and first, what they wanted to do to begin with was to shave his head, and he agreed to it, and then put this bony structure over his bald head. And I said, no. I see he doesn't want to go around with a bald head, for the length. Of course, we didn't know how long it was going to go. I thought the show at least last 2 seasons. So it became a forehead, a regular Klingon forehead, and which they used in a couple of the movies before that, but they were a different design than mine were, and there were no noses and there were no teeth. So those are things I added to it, was because I had a background in my main mentor was a dental technician and a makeup artist, and John Chambers, and John actually won the Oscar for Planet of the Apes. But I was sitting by his side for 3 years, writing everything in a book that he taught me, where something was purchased, how it was made, how it was done. So I was well prepared when Star Trek came along, because I had things before that, like Masters of the Universe and the movie Mask with Eric Stoltz. So I had my hands in a lot of that, and smaller things at Universal. That little things that we went on there, new characters we would have pop up in the Munsters and stuff, and we were playing with things like that. But now the other thing I do is I get talking and get off in the wrong direction, and you get.
We were on Worf's. You were on Worf's.
Oh, right, okay, we're talking about Worf. Great. Oh, I forgot about that. Michael, the way he looked in that character. But Michael would come up with ideas. Now, this is an interesting thing. He'd say, I want my hair to be a little shorter, or I want to put it into a ponytail. I mean, this is more so than the girls, than Gates and Marina conversations. And they would agree. So you will see Michael Dorn change through history. And a lot of it was because that's what Michael wanted to do. So, and so it was done. Color-wise on his face really didn't change that much, because that's, we had to cover his skin tone, make one total skin tone for him. As far as his wig went, his eyebrows didn't change, his beard didn't change. It always was that damn wig. Or maybe one of the hairdressers, like Joy Zapata on the show, and she might say, "Well, I would like to do this," and he'd talk to Dorn. Dorn's off to production. Production says, "Okay," and it changed. Of course, you were with him for a long time there on Deep Space Nine. I don't think it ever changed.
Well, not too much. He had it out one time when he just had it kind of,
Oh, it didn't get short though. Out. It went from all big long hair to very, very short, almost like a bob. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely a bob. Hey, Michael. So actually, one of the images behind me is a completely exploded torso, basically. And I just want to know what went into that. I mean, how much?
Where it was exciting,
Yeah.
And they with that was you're thinking, that's going to take a little time. This isn't something that comes out of the box in a day. So this being a whole body, that it's too much work for our lab with everything else we're going. We went to Makeup Effects Lab in North Hollywood, and over the years in Star Trek, whenever we had special things like that, and we didn't have time to do them, and it was maybe something big, that Makeup Effects would do it for us. But this body was made there based on the actor's body, with the rib cage and being able to get into it from the back. Because when the body explodes and all the little buggers come flying, that all of a sudden Mother comes out of it. And here we have a hand puppet that has to be controlled from the back that comes up out of it. Now, the other interesting thing with that was my son-in-law, Patrick Tatopoulos, who's a director and art director and designer, very talented man, that he came from Europe and looking for a job, and Make of Effects hired him. And that's the first job he got in America, was literally designing
the hand puppet.
hand sculpting that hand puppet. And he
that's so cool.
He's got a picture of himself that I have a copy somewhere. But yeah, Patrick did it. So Mother comes up out of that, and being a hand puppet, you can do all kinds of wonderful things with it. And it's that's the thing that kind of, I think, got people, fans of the show, going, "Oh my God, I'm here with my 2-year-old son." It was, and as you say, we made a horror movie.
Yeah, this was a horror movie. There were moments like when that bug was crawling in the mouth. It was just like I almost had to look away for a second. This stuff sticks in your brain. It reminded me of The Wrath of Khan when they put that bug in his ear.
Oh yeah.
It had that. I've never been able to like burn that out of my memory. It's stuck with me, you know. And this was.
No, go ahead.
What was that? No. What was it?
Dan Curry, who was our.
We love Dan Curry.
Effects, and Dan and I worked over the years on second unit all the time. All these little special effects, a lot of them were done second unit to get us out of the way and not to hold up the crew. But as far as making anything move, like to make a little bug crawl up his face or something like that, Dan had the ability. All he needed was the item, and boom, he could do anything, in the world.
Wow. And the face that's used in the background behind Ryan, that face that's a digital special effect, right? Is that?
Yeah.
That's not like. So they composite, they blended it all together.
Well, and there was on some things that there wasn't really enough time to include it in while we were filming, and it was easier to do that digitally, and having somebody as talented as Dan that can do all this work and do it fast. And he was also, I want to say, that we were all under the gun budget wise, but Dan always came through with a feasible and usable budget that made everything work.
Budget, that was the thing that kind of jumped out at me when I saw this. I was just kind of like, I feel like they allocated a lot of funds to this episode. And so I'm thinking, does that mean that they had a few bottle episodes beforehand, and then they're like, hey, there are only 2 episodes left in this season. We got a little bit left. Let's go nuts. Or were they kind of whispering in your ear saying, hey, can you do it on the cheap? We don't have the money to really do this.
No, actually, no. When it came, something that came through like that, you're absolutely right. We would do a show where, maybe 2 people landed on a planet for 99% of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they could save money on it. And not save money, but just the budget on this would be $1 million, and the budget over here is going to be $2 million. And that's in this day and age with all the special effects movies and everything, including the new Star Treks. If we had that money, I don't know what we would have done with that money if we had that much. Because even budgets on I did 4 movies over my tenure there, and none of our budgets ever came close to what the budgets are today.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I have a kind of a strange question, and I hope you can answer this one for me. What happens to that stuff when you're done with it? That, for example, that corpse that's behind with the puppet and everything, like what happens to it when you guys are done using it? It's all wrapped up. You just put it, somebody say, I'll take this home with me, or
feed it to the seagulls.
That's a prop. So that would have gone into the props for the year. And and I don't know if somebody took that home or not. Usually that wasn't done. It wound up all those things that went in the property department, and the property department had large spaces where they just put everything in there. You never know when all of a sudden they're going to come back and ask for it.
Right.
And you better have it there when it was ready. There were 3 stages, sound stages that we filmed on. What was the number where you were?
We were on 17, 18, and 4.
Okay, 16. The 3 in a row there. You were in the middle, and the end, I think it was. And underneath all those 3 stages was a giant basement, and that was filled with props that went back to the 1940s, stuffed underneath those stages. The studio eventually sold them all to one man, and then he only there's a few items that he wanted, and he auctioned those off and got rid of them. But I went down there a couple times, and you just walked around and you'd see, oh my God, look at this, a lamp from Breakfast at Tiffany's and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, big classic movies that Paramount made, and all the props are down there. We're still there. So
I saw the stuff that was above ground. I never saw the stuff below.
Yeah,
I saw the prop. They had that prop. Yeah, they had the prop area above ground with a bunch of stuff, and I used to walk around there and see all the cool, little props for the set dressing. But I wasn't aware they had all that stuff somewhere, and maybe this mold that you made ended up in another horror film at some point later on down the road.
Yeah. I kept all the molds, and a mold never got thrown away from day one, or from let's see what we would have. We really didn't have much in the first episode, but then we had the Traveler, and I had his molds forever. I still have some of them. I still have Stallone's molds from Rocky. It's like they gave me quite a bit of space in an upstairs laboratory, and we had one shelf that was nothing but molds of old age makeups. Every time we did an old age makeup on somebody and had to do it fresh, when we finished with the episode, they'd be up there. And sometimes they would bring somebody back, or maybe these pieces would fit somebody else, and we didn't have to go back to stage 1 of molding and sculpting. All we had to do was run the rubber for it. So nothing ever got thrown away.
Well, Michael,
a few things are stolen.
Oh, whoops. Well, this has been so much fun, Michael. We really appreciate you coming and joining to talk about this episode with us. We really hope you'll be back. We'll be calling you again. There's so many great episodes that were made so much better because of you. But anyway, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time today.
Oh, my pleasure. I had good people. I was lucky to find people that had won Oscars and Emmys and everything. And in between their movies, I would hire them to come over to Star Trek.
I noticed an Emmy strategically placed to your right.
Yes.
that old thing.
Yeah. Oh, how'd that get there? Beautiful.
I had an extra one and didn't know where to put it. So it was fun, and I don't think any of us ever thought of, oh boy, we're going to win an Emmy. But Star Trek did. We got nominated every year of the season, and most of the time it was whether it was Deep Space Nine or whatever, we got nominated because aside from the makeup artists, I had just wonderful people working in the lab.
Well, you deserved it. You're a super legend in this business. We didn't even get to talk about the Boolean, which I thought was excellently done.
That was
in
fun.
This episode.
Yeah, actually, we do have. I mean, if you got a second to say something about the Boolean, who was played by, what is his name? Michael something. Really love that actor.
Yeah, he's well-known.
One night he wanted to wear his makeup home and show the kids. Can you imagine him driving down the street and going by in a car and getting
Michael Berryman. Michael Berryman is his name. Yeah. He was amazing in Devil's Rejects, if I remember correctly. That's where I really fell in love with the guy. But that was the very first Boolean that you created there.
Yes, and it was interesting because again, no directions or anything, but in looking at Michael, he had very thin hair. So we thought, well, make him bald. That'd be a good idea. So actually constructed a bald head that had we split his face in half with a stripe that went inside, and there was a piece on his nose, and he had earlobes. And it's interesting in doing aliens because you're going along, you're going, what color are we going to make him? And you go, well, let's see, the last episode we had an orange one, so let's make
know?
That's how you pick the color.
So we can make him blue. And then by putting the blue on him, he was, which was a light blue, it just looked very flat and plain. So what I did is I made a stencil up, and we made watermelon marks out of darker blue that went around all the way down, his back and across the top of the head. So,
and I also heard, coincidentally, that Booleans were named after the director of this episode, Cliff Bole.
Oh,
I guess you didn't know that, but that's what I had heard. Yeah,
nicknames get tacked on to people all the time. Like the Ferengis got called the buttheads because if you looked at it from the back, it's just through over time things got their names. But did Cliff direct that one? I don't think he did, or did he?
He directed this one, Conspiracy, which was the first.
I know that. Yeah, I mean for a Boolean, whether he directed that one or not. Oh no, there was Boolean in it. You said
this was the first Boolean in this episode, I believe.
Which every time we see a Boolean, by the way, Ryan gets excited because that's his favorite, one of his favorite aliens.
It's true. That is this episode was the creation of the alien that is my favorite Star Trek alien, the Booleans. They're very underutilized, but I'm very happy you created
There was
them.
Mr. Mock. Mr. Mock.
Yeah, he's later on in there for sure.
He's later on,
and you derived it with an aquatic kind of origin. Is that the idea?
I don't know. And it's interesting. I was just a couple of weeks ago. I was doing a Zoom with a convention in Long Island, New York, and they said, "How do you think of these things up?" And I just thought, well, and then I was explaining that I didn't want to do fantasy because that was Star Wars. So I had to find something. And by going through all the books, I had a huge library that I collected. And I would make the aliens out of a composition of 2 or 3 things on Earth that you're familiar with. You're familiar with the image, but you're not familiar with the 3 or 2 or 3 of them put together. And a man said, in other words, you do hybrids. And I said, you're right. I love that. I'm going to use it,
Yeah.
And nobody had ever said that before, but that's what I was literally designing over the years, hybrids.
And I want to just point out a similarity that I believe, when you talked about the watermelon marks on the Boolean and the kind of bringing life to the skin texture so that it didn't look just like a paint flat blue. It actually looked like a skin of some kind of, of animal. That same kind of thing reminds me of the Avatar when you see the details and how they make the avatars in the movie Avatar. So it's it's just the detail. They copied you. That's what I'm trying to say. They owe you some money and another award.
Yeah. Now that's funny because some new show will come out or something like that, and I'll look at it and I'll go, "Oh, that looks like a Harrigan." I will see some of my own things. And there was one episode or one with an Enterprise, the green people that we had.
Orions.
Yeah. And I got an inspiration from Hellraiser. And so there we have on some of the people.
Cool.
Yeah. The strings and the things, into their skin and everything. But, Hellraiser 1 was interesting, but the rest of them were baths of blood.
All right. It's an honor, Mr. Westmore, always to talk with you. What Stanley is to comic books, you are to makeup and science fiction, his business. And it's always a pleasure to just hear some of your thoughts and your insight.
I can give you a little hint. We've been working on a documentary of me. So we've been filming every so often. I sit down and chat and tell stories like we're doing here.
Mm-hmm. So everybody stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for that.
And you will recognize the production company doing it, by the way, everybody at home. If you're thinking, wait, is it the same company that's doing it? Yes, it is. So stick around for that, everybody. But also, everybody, we're going to hop over to the other side. We'd like to give our very special thanks to Mr. Michael Westmore for taking the time and just dropping so much cool information, insights, and stories with us. We really appreciate you, Michael. Everybody, stick around. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule.